Hello, beautiful people. We meet yet again. My name is Paula Sinistera. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I specialize in helping folks recover from trauma, complex trauma, anxiety, OCD, and depression. And I am also a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist. I'm certified and I facilitate in FDA-approved research trials for psychedelic medicine. I am on this channel to share with you guys the insights and wisdoms that arise for me as I go on the journey, as I move through the journey of doing this work and working with all kinds of different folks and continuing to study my craft and to pass as much information along as I can to all of you to benefit your own journey, your own healing journey. And hopefully this channel is able to do that. Now, without further ado, for today's video, you are tuning in to part 3 of my Introduction to IFS series, Internal Family Systems. That is one of the, by far, leading models of psychotherapy, essentially, say, dominating or leading the way in the psychotherapy field today. It's cutting edge stuff. The most highly trained psychotherapists are working with that today. And yeah, this is part 3. So if you're just now tuning into my channel, go back and watch part 1 and part 2 so that by the time you get to this portion of the video, you know what's going on, is that they're all working consecutively with each other. So enjoy. Comment below, like, dislike, share, and join in the conversation. I would love to have this be a dialogue between all of us, between me behind this camera and all of you out there that are tuning in, so that we can continue to grow and evolve this conversation on mental health. I love you guys, sending you all the love, and enjoy. Bye. Now, if that's our true self, Paula, then why do we suffer so much? How IFS explains this is in terms of parts, okay? And this can also be broken down into nervous system language. It just pick your favorite language and go with it. Regardless, there's parts, there's different states of being at play, different energies that move through us that obscure our true self, almost like clouds coming over the sun. The sun is always there, but they get obscured. And so through the IFS model, and I find this just a really easy to work with way to explain it, there are 2 basic types of defenses, parts that protect us, similar to the survival system. And in the IFS model, these are described as either managers or firefighters of our system. The managers are the parts of us that you could say are more where the anxiety is likely to come from, the part of us that is hyper vigilant, the part of us that is maybe kind of works a little bit more like a military officer, depending how tight our nervous system is, the part of us that maybe brings us down, if the perfectionist part of us, that controlling part that tries to kind of protect us and take us to safety through these kinds of more controlling survival strategies. The firefighters, and I'm gonna maybe add a little orange in there, or even a little red to make it stand out a little more. The firefighters are the parts of us that want to take us out of suffering. They also want to get us to a place of feeling safety again, of feeling calm, of feeling peaceful, but they have a different way of trying to get us there than the managers do. What the firefighters try to get us there by, so this is how the IFS model describes it. So basically, when a house is on fire, you want to put it out. Firefighters come and they spray their hoses and they put the most important thing is to put the fire out regardless of what kind of water damage may come to pass in that house. And that's what firefighters do. So in our world, what that may look like is maybe avoidance or procrastination or drugs or trying to numb ourselves in a different way or distracting. All these different strategies that we have that get rid of pain immediately don't necessarily help our life function better in the way the managers would like, but they get rid of the pain. Okay? And usually, often people are, more often than not, are more inclined towards firefighters leading the systems or managers leading the system. Now, what are they protecting? If the self is this infinite, all-powerful part of us that can't be bothered, what in the world, why are these other parts of us working so hard to try to create safety in our lives, to try to create a sense of ease? Why are they so worried? And what they are protecting is what IFS calls, and you see me looking down here because I'm picking the colors, what IFS would describe as the exiles. I make a little heart because the exile is the part of us that received some of the rawest, most painful experiences of pain before we were ready to make sense of it, or maybe in circumstances in which we had no adequate support for making sense of why life was giving us anything less than the love that we are. And so you could even think of the exiles as the inner child that carries the wounds from the trauma, the wounds from whatever pain life threw your way. And so it's a very vulnerable part of us. When the exile is carrying those wounds, let me say this, like, very pure part of us, when it's carrying the wounds, we call it that it's burdened. It's burdened by those wounds. And usually those wounds came our way, again, but like I said, before we had the skills to really digest them in any way that was constructive. And so that's when these other parts of us took on the burden of making sure that that pain would never get activated again. And so what happened is that pain was exiled to the deepest place in our being, and we may not even be conscious of it. This is when we start getting into what Jung described as the unconscious, that these experiences get exiled, that part of us that carries that burden of that wound, of that trauma, gets exiled to our unconscious, but our system is still operating. Our system kind of then goes to task between these managers and these firefighters. It goes to task with making sure that burden, that wound, we can maybe, say like this is these are like the little wounds that it's received throughout its life. And the manager and the firefighter will do whatever they need to do in our world to make sure that those wounds are not touched by the world again. Because our system is at that point operating from the premise that we can't handle it. Because again, those wounds happened when we were children. And if we didn't have an adult that was in self-energy to help us digest it and to help us stay feeling safe and supported through that initial breaking of innocence, then these other parts of us start trying to figure out, like, how do we handle this? And that's when we get into burden managers and burden firefighters. Typically, they function in ways that help us that helped us in the moment, but over time they become maladaptive and dysfunctional. And actually all the virtually all of the diagnoses in the DSM that the Western psychology diagnoses people with can be understood through the relationship between managers, firefighters, exiled, and the exile. And so the conversation in our system ends up becoming between the firefighters and the managers. Like, they're constantly trying to negotiate with each other and work it out, right? Like, if anyone's experienced disordered eating or self-sabotage, or maybe having the periods of, and I say disordered eating because that one's really marked by that kind of like firefighter manager dilemma, where we might experience periods of like severe restriction and then periods of just indulging or going to task and just getting rid of the pain through numbing through food. And then you might find yourself cycling back and forth between those two ways of being, but they're ultimately functioning with these defense mechanisms in order to try to keep the pain away from the exile. In order to, there's something that they're protecting. It's different for each person. So through IFS informed work, we get in there in deep meditative and visualization experiences to start discovering what it is that these parts of us are doing, why they're doing it, what it is that they're protecting us from, and what it is that that exile is carrying, that our system is so focused on making sure we don't re-experience, and then helping that part of us release that burden so that we can get back more into that free, spontaneous self that if you had the privilege of having a happy childhood, even for a number, even for a few years of your life, if you had the privilege of getting to experience being a child, a pure, just happy child, that spontaneous, free child is ultimately who the exile returns to once it's unburdened. So like, it's the home of our creativity and our courage and our spontaneity and our playfulness. In IFS, we want to help these clouds move to the side. Ultimately, we want to get to work with the managers and the firefighters first to get them to move to the side respectfully and at their own pace, so that eventually the self can reach down and directly reach the exile. When that happens, this is the energy that is ultimately going to heal those wounds within us.